Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our North Middlesex Wednesday, September the 3rd council meeting. This time I'll call the meeting to order. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone has any, please forward them to Carolyn. Minutes of the previous meeting. Any business arising or errors or omissions? Seeing none, we need a motion to approve those minutes. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Committee of Adjustment and public meeting. So we need to go to the first one is. I got no motion, but we do have to have a motion. Moved by Councillor Irwin and second by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? Carried. All right, 6 p.m. First is notice of public meeting to consider application MV 9/2025 at 130 Old Mill Street, Nelson Craig. Is Jen, do you want to come up? No? Okay. All right. Ashley, when you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Ropp. Are you able to just enable the screen sharing permissions, please?
We'll have to be patient with the person we have doing this tonight.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so this minor variance is for 130 Old Mill Street, which is located in the western portion of the Elsa Craig urban settlement area, and it's just south of the intersection of Old Mill Street and Elsa Craig Main Street. The lands are located in an area that is predominantly residential in nature, and they are zoned as residential density zone 1 and are designated in the official plan as a residential area. So the committee may recall that this property was severed from 132 Old Mill Street at the end of 2023. And I would just note that this application is separate from that severance and is specifically for a new residential dwelling on the lot that was created with that severance. So the owner is proposing to construct a one-story single detached residential dwelling that is approximately 1,100 square feet in size, and they hope to start construction in 2026. They have explored multiple different interior layouts and have determined that minor variance relief will allow for the most comfortable and functional living space that provides flexibility to incorporate a home office. The design has been carefully thought out to ensure sufficient outdoor green space is maintained, that the character of the area is maintained, and that sufficient parking will be provided on the lands without vehicles encroaching onto the road allowance or interfering with snow removal. So relief is being requested from the front yard setback, the rear yard setback, and the front yard porch encroachment. So for the front yard setback, 6 meters is required, whereas 4.5 meters is proposed. And I would just note this is only for the portion of the dwelling that excludes the garage. So you'll see the setback of the building envelope on the map there. So the 6 meters will be maintained in the driveway and the garage, just so that we don't have that vehicle overhang onto the road allowance, and that sufficient parking can still be provided on site. For the rear yard setback, 6 meters is required, whereas 4.5 meters is proposed. And for the front porch encroachment, 1.8 meters is permitted, whereas 1.98 meters is proposed. So the application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act to all required agencies and landowners. Any comments received prior to the submission of my report are outlined in the table. But generally speaking, the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, Canada Post, Integris, the county engineer, the Thames Valley District School Board, and the municipality's building department, infrastructure and operations department, and drainage superintendent have all noted no concerns, and no comments have been submitted by members of the public to date. So as it pertains to the application meeting the 4 minor variance tests that are set out in the Planning Act, staff are of the opinion that it does. My report does go into detail, but I would just summarize it by saying that the subject lands are located in a predominantly low-density residential neighborhood that's characterized by dwellings with similar built form and setbacks. The dwelling proposed is modest in scale and size. It's cohesive with the surrounding neighborhood, and it aims to enhance the overall curb appeal and aesthetic of the neighborhood while also maintaining sufficient outdoor space and parking space. I would just note that this reduced rear yard setback is offset by the proposed interior side yard setback of 5 meters on the southerly interior lot line. They are proposing 5.18 meters. We've suggested 5 meters just for some construction variances that may arise. And I would just note that technically 1.2 meters is required. Also, in terms of the rear yard setback relief, there is existing mature tree cover on the rear lot line. The porch encroachment difference is minimal at 0.18 meters or 0.6 feet. Based on that, staff's opinion is that this is a negligible difference and will not be perceptible from or detract from the streetscape. Additionally, no sightline or road safety concerns have been identified by the Infrastructure and Operations Department. Further, even with the requested relief, the proposed lot coverage is only 24% approximately, whereas technically 40% is permitted. So this means that just over 75% of the lot area is being maintained as open space. Staff do not anticipate a negative impact on neighboring properties should the relief be granted. And I would just note that my review and support for the rear yard setback relief is based on the property having a larger interior side yard green space on one side of the dwelling. So I have recommended this as an included condition, but ultimately I am recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. At this time, is there anything you'd like to add? You're good? Okay. I do have to ask if there's any comments from the public on this application. Seeing none, committee, questions? Okay. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Actually, my only question, I think you addressed it. You mentioned something about sight lines, and I'm just curious, what will the sight line be for people pulling adjacent neighbors pulling out of their driveways? Will this variance impact on that at all?
Through Chair Rob, not expecting that it will. Infrastructure and Operations didn't note any concerns, and it's not set back any closer than existing structures without issue. So we're
Okay.
suspecting it'll be okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have a recommendation in front of us. What's your wish? Councilor Irwin?
I'll move it, your worship.
Okay, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Our next one is a notice of public meeting to consider application B13 2025 located at 35661 McGuire Road. And welcome, Mr. Hendrick. How are you?
Thank you, your worship. I'm well.
Good. All right, Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you. So this consent is, as noted, for a surplus farm dwelling severance at 35661 McGuire Road, which is located just north of Adair Drive on the west side of McGuire Road. Surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural in nature. The lands are designated as an agricultural area and contain hazard lands and woodlands in the official plan, and they are zoned as general agricultural and environmental protection in the zoning bylaw. A portion of the lands, as I noted in my report, are regulated by the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, which is the red hatched area on the map, and then the green hatched area is what is classified as significant woodlands. So the applicant is proposing to sever approximately 1 hectare or 2.47 acres from the existing 100-acre farm parcel. The severed parcel would retain the existing single detached dwelling, 4 residential accessory structures, and 1 former silo that is used as a decorative landscape feature and is not capable of being used for modern agricultural practices. The retained parcel would continue to be used for agricultural cash cropping purposes. And no change of use is proposed to either the severed or the retained parcel. The application was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and standard conditions for a surplus farm dwelling severance have been provided by the agencies that did make comment. Canada Post, the County Engineer, Integris, and the School Board noted no concerns. The Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority did note that because the severed parcel stays outside of the regulated area and that the hazard lands remain solely with the retained parcel, that they do not have concern with the proposed severance. However, should the severance propose to encroach into these regulated areas, their comments would change. Standard comments were provided by Emergency Services regarding 911 addressing and signage, by the Building Department regarding habitability of the dwelling, septic inspection and location confirmation, and by the Infrastructure and Operations Department regarding what all must be shown on the preliminary survey. And I would just note a drain reassessment is also required. No comments were submitted by members of the public prior to the submission of my report. So in terms of an analysis, my report goes into detail, but I would just note that surplus farm dwelling severances in prime agricultural areas require very specific criteria to be met. And this stems from the province down to the municipality, with the municipality having the most specific criteria. Not every property can meet this criteria set, and therefore not every property is eligible for this type of severance. For this property, though, staff are satisfied that the proposed severance criteria is met. Farm consolidation has been demonstrated. The dwelling was constructed prior to 1999, so it meets that criteria set out in the North Middlesex official plan, and the dwelling also appears to be habitable. In terms of lot area and configuration, I would just note that the official plan requires that the severed parcel only be as large as necessary to accommodate the residential use, on-site water and sanitary disposal facilities, and should generally be a maximum of 2.47 acres. I would just note that 2.47 acres is generally larger than I like to see because where we can, this area should be kept to the minimum possible, just to ensure that agricultural land is preserved for potential future cultivation and other farm-related uses. However, I would note that in this specific case, because the property has been used for residential purposes on that area since 1994 with no known adverse impacts, and that those accessory structures are residential in nature on the rear of the property that are in good condition, they wouldn't reasonably serve an agricultural function on the retained parcel. So I'm satisfied with the lot area. I would also note that staff have a general preference for a more rectangular lot configuration. However, in this particular instance, the lot shape proposed is the result of a municipal drain and ABCA regulated area. Staff generally prefer that the drain not be dissected, and also note that the ABCA does not generally support dissecting their regulated area either. Regarding servicing, standard conditions have been included. Access will need to be confirmed. Staff do not have concerns from a minimum distance separation setback perspective, and a zoning bylaw amendment will be required to rezone the severed parcel to rural residential and the retained parcel to prohibit the establishment of new residential dwellings. So in conclusion, I am supportive of this consent and satisfied that it meets the policy tests, and I am recommending approval with the conditions in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you, council. Just for the record, my name is Paul Hendricks. I'm here on behalf of the applicant and the owners of the property. And I'll just note for the record that the owners and a representative of the applicant are both present in case any questions arise that we need their assistance in answering. I support the comments of my friend, the planner. I'll just very briefly address, I know council prefers to have it a rectangular shape. And you'll see on the drawing where the regulated area is, and that kind of gives you some sense of why it's not shaped rectangular. Honestly, my clients would prefer it to be rectangular and just, straighten that line out. But we're cognizant of the concerns of the ABCA. And so I'm open to council if how it's contoured, if we want to discuss that.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I have to ask again if there's any comments from the public on this application. Seeing none, comments, questions from the committee. Councillor Daigle.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have met with these ratepayers and they would like to see the line straightened out. But we're also now cognizant that it may cause an environmental assessment if it goes to the ABCA. They have just said they would be satisfied with this, but if there's any way we could straighten it, that would be great.
Ashley, I would turn that to you, but I assume that if we straighten it, that's going back to the ABCA.
Thank you. Yes. So I would suggest, just in my conversations with the ABCA, if that is the route we want to go, they would require an additional circulation and comments be provided. Generally, they're not supportive of dissecting a regulated area. So I would suggest if that's the route council or the committee wishes to go, we should defer the application for their comment.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Daigle, do you have a follow-up?
I would just like to ask the applicants if they would be okay with a deferral for it to be heard by the ABCA.
Okay, Paul will.
If we
ahead and
stand the matter
yep.
down just for
Yep.
one moment.
Go ahead.
Thank you, council, for that moment. I've spoken to my clients and I believe we're content to just go forward with the contours that we have.
Okay, well, it's not like you have a close neighbor next to them that, I mean, I assume they're going to. Councillor Daigle, you're making that a motion. And we have it seconded by Councillor Keel. Is there any other comments on this? I know the deputy mayor just hates that crooked line, but
Can I comment?
Yes, you can comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am one of the ones that pushes for a square severance. But I do understand everyone's created a little bit differently. And in this case, with everything going on, and we have allowed others in the past and be consistent with other severances in the past, I am in favor of this one. Wow.
Okay,
I know.
thank you. Thank you. All right, no other comments? We have a motion in front of us. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just also note for the record, I have a third reading of a zoning bylaw. And I don't intend to stick around unless council wants me to. It's really a formality, but I thought I would address it since I'm about to leave and it'll come up shortly.
I'll ask you about that. Yeah. No. Okay.
Thank you, council.
All right, thank you. All right. Oh. Next is notice of public meeting to consider application ZBA 9/2025, and that's the housekeeping amendments. And Ashley, this is yours. No. I'm showing after this. You're clerk and you tell me if I.
We don't consider a zoning amendment a committee of adjustment, so we'll need to come out of committee
Okay.
first
Moved
before
by
we do the
Councilor Irwin,
ZBA.
seconded by Councilor Herda, all in favor? Carried. I have it for after that, so on the agenda, so no problem. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ashley.
Thank you, Mayor Roth. So the subject application is for a general housekeeping amendment to the North Middlesex zoning bylaw, which, as council is aware, is a normal and standard process that just ensures that our bylaw is maintained and kept up to date and also allows us to iron out any kinks with interpretations and that sort of thing that we've seen from inquiries come in. So I would just note that I'm not recommending that council make a decision this evening. I'm just here to provide information on the proposed changes that I think are important to be considered. And I welcome any feedback by members of council, and we can take this feedback back for any necessary revisions and then come back for a decision at a later meeting. So my report goes into detail, but the first change is that the accessory building definition be amended to reflect the direction of the provincial legislation. So right now, in a fully serviced municipal settlement area, additional residential units are permitted by the province as of right, which means that regardless of what our zoning bylaw or official plan says, they are permitted in these areas. What this has meant is that staff apply the accessory structure provisions for setbacks for these ARUs in fully serviced areas. However, the definition isn't explicitly clear regarding this. So this amendment is just for that sake of clarity. And I would just note that this is a temporary, very high level change. And really all of these updates are going to be fully encapsulated in the OPA that is required for your half funding qualification. So that will be coming forward under a larger policy framework, but I just figured for an interpretation perspective and the time being, it will simplify things. The second change is to include a written definition for a front lot line, specifically on a corner lot where both lot lines abutting the road are different lengths. As currently our zoning bylaw only refers to this visually, and we do get calls from confused plans designers on corner lots that are these kind of one-offs and the unusual ones that are defined. This one's not defined in writing. It's just visually shown, so I'd like to add a written definition there. The third change that I know Councillor Cornelison is going to be very excited about is to include some additional height permissions, specifically in agricultural areas for residential accessory structures. So as council is aware, typically the committee gets a number of minor variance applications specifically for this type of request. And the increased height's really going to provide some additional flexibility to ratepayers, particularly out in the rural areas. So I aligned the height permissions proposed with what our building staff are used to interpreting in their other local municipalities that they also provide services to, and just ultimately to maintain consistency for them. I've also based these off of what our committee has previously approved without issue and that staff have recommended approval on without issue. And then also just doing some site visits to look at the structures that got the relief and were actually built. And in my opinion, they all fit in quite nicely with the area they're in. The fourth change is regarding fencing. So as council is aware, the municipality did previously not have a fence bylaw. And the only reference to fencing was in the zoning bylaw for industrial properties, particularly if they were a salvage yard or a scrap yard. So we do have a new comprehensive fence bylaw now that's fully in effect and implemented. And so being that that's a standalone piece of legislation, staff are recommending that this fencing section of the bylaw be removed, just so we're avoiding unnecessary duplication between that bylaw and the zoning bylaw. And then that way, from an administrative perspective, when we're updating one bylaw, we're not updating both. It just also makes it easier for people to interpret when it's not in multiple locations. The fifth change is regarding home industry regulations. So right now, the bylaw has a list of requirements for home industries to follow in residential areas, even though these are not permitted in any of our residential areas. And this essentially means that those in agricultural areas where they are technically permitted have no real rules or regulations to follow. So I'm looking to just add some clarity to the bylaw that these regulations apply to any home industry. And really the goal is not to hinder these operations. It's just to set some parameters that our bylaw enforcement officer has. The sixth change is probably the one I'm most excited about. And this is something that's already really common in other municipalities. So in the instance where you are doing, say, a surplus farm dwelling severance in a rural area, and your committee considers your lot area and your frontage at the application stage, this would just deem those lot areas and frontages to comply with the zoning bylaw. So we're not making people come back for site-specific relief for those uses because you're already essentially approving them in principle as a committee. And right now they have to come back to council to ask for it again. This is ultimately added up to right now we have about 120 site-specific agricultural zones and 50 site-specific agricultural holding zones. So also from an administrative perspective, when I'm drafting bylaws, it is quite challenging to track that many site-specific zones. The seventh change is just to update the wording to reflect our whole delegation bylaw. This is something we already have included, but in our wording, but it speaks to council lifting the hold, whereas now the CAO has the authority to lift the hold if needed. And then the eighth change is to remove the permission for storage containers or C-cans in the central commercial zone, which is predominantly our zones that are on Park Hill Main Street and Elsa Craig Main Street, which are obviously highly visible commercial areas. And I would just note that we have dealt with bylaw complaints regarding these in these commercial areas, and ultimately staff's position is that these are not consistent with the function of the main street generally. We want a vibrant streetscape, we want business investment, pedestrian-friendly areas, and that sort of thing. And that's not to say that an individual landowner couldn't have one in the future. They would just have to come back and ask for site-specific relief from council to do that. And then the final changes are just going to be administrative in nature. I'm just going to go through, and if there's any typos or misnumberings or any sort of thing, I will update it. And then also any section renumbering that is a result of the changes. No comments or concerns were noted by agencies or members of the public. And as I did note, I'm just here for feedback this evening, and then I will bring a recommendation later. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashley. So questions or comments and all those things? Councillor Cornelison?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Actually, my question for you is in relation to the C-cans. Do you know, is a building permit required to have the one put up on your property?
Through Chair Rob, I'm not currently aware that one would be required. And I don't believe any have been issued for the instances that we've had bylaw complaints with.
Okay.
Any other questions on these? Go ahead.
And I am indeed very pleased to see the change in the rural structures to a greater height. It's about time we did that. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Councillor. We've talked about that many times that they have to come and spend money when they just want to go a little higher on it. So, yeah. If there's no other questions at this time, we need a motion to accept this for information. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Ashley. You have one more, I believe, and that is report on ZBA 10/2025, 117 Jameson Street. And we're looking for the applicant. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. So as noted, the subject lands have a municipal address of 117 Jameson Street, and they are located in the Elsa Craig Urban Settlement area. I would just note that this is the property that we held a public meeting for on August 13th. And surrounding uses for this area are predominantly commercial and institutional to the south, light industrial to the west, and then to the north and east is low density residential. So the purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the property from residential density zone 1 to a site-specific residential density zone 3 to facilitate the construction of a one 3-story apartment building containing 8 residential units. Notice of the application was circulated to the required agencies and property owners in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act, and as noted, the statutory public meeting has been held. Written comments submitted by agencies and one neighboring property owner prior to that public meeting remain unchanged, and they are detailed again in my report there. And then at that public meeting, verbal comments were made by 4 neighboring landowners, and I would summarize their concerns by saying it was with the type of tenure, questioning whether there's demand for apartment units in Elsa Craig, whether sufficient parking would be provided, property standards enforcement mechanisms, tree retention, aesthetic and design of the build, privacy and buffering, servicing, noise of the existing operation of the old town hall, timing of construction, and property values. And I would just note that I did provide a comment response matrix to the agenda for council's review in advance of this evening, but generally staff are of the opinion that the comments that could reasonably be addressed have been. So following the public meeting, the owner and staff considered all feedback, and the owner did make minor revisions to address the comments. Ultimately, the proposal remains predominantly the same in form and function, but we did include some more fencing and buffering, specifically a 1.8-meter privacy fence along both interior lot lines and the rear lot line, whereas originally it was just proposed along the northerly interior lot line. The tree buffering remains on the northerly interior lot line as well as the fencing. Additionally, the applicant has started their grading, drainage, and servicing plan, and they are proposing, just to minimize any disruption to neighboring landowners, to kind of alter the layout of the driveway, which has resulted in needing landscaping open area relief of 0.2%. So in terms of an analysis, provincial, county, and municipal policies are cited in detail, so I'm not going to say everything through and through again, but the development will facilitate residential intensification within a fully serviced urban settlement area, and it will contribute to a mix of housing types and options in the area. It's also making use of existing land, infrastructure, and our existing public service facilities. The lands, in my opinion, will act as a transition area between existing commercial and institutional uses to the south and low-density uses to the east and north. And the proposed design will maintain compatibility with surrounding uses by providing increased setbacks for the front and rear yards, providing board-on-board fencing, landscape buffering, and limited side windows. Staff are of the opinion that quality urban design is a key consideration in land use planning, and it helps ensure that new development is compatible with the existing neighborhood character and contributes to the overall streetscape and aesthetic of the community. Design is, however, quite subjective. So without this subjectivity, ultimately we would have, I would say, cookie cutter communities where everything looks the same. Ultimately, diversity in design reflects the period of construction, and it adds visual interest and character to the community. So in staff's opinion, the proposed building is modern, attractive, and features a predominantly brick facade that complements and maintains the aesthetic of the surrounding neighborhood. And I would just note that the enforcement of specific design parameters is not currently supported in our policies, and certainly not in the direction that the provincial policy has been taking. A staff response matrix, as I noted, was provided, and I would just say the only thing that I would like to add is that we are proposing it from a staff perspective that a hold be implemented on the property just until sanitary capacity is formally allocated and until a development agreement is entered into, and that development agreement is really going to be where the technical details are outlined. And in conclusion, staff are of the opinion that the zoning bylaw amendment is appropriate, consistent with the applicable policies, and are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Ashley. Is there anything you'd like to add at this point?
No, I think she did a great job again.
Okay, okay. Council, comments, questions? Councilor Irwin?
Thank you, your worship. Just a couple comments. First off, thanks for the fence to the south. I think that was a significant issue at the public meeting, and I think that will satisfy a lot of individuals. I did listen closely to the aesthetics discussion and urban design. And I'm looking at the rendering, part of the report. Are we sticking with this rendering that's in front of us this evening?
Yeah, we haven't changed the rendering yet. We may change some of the materials, but after consulting with staff again, we decided that the building itself would be conducive to the era that it's built in, modern. And I think from a cityscape perspective, to change up, I guess, the transition between new and old, it would still suit the neighborhood.
Okay. Councilor Cornelison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. My question is for the applicant. Have you decided to get these people out of the ground, above ground, or are you going to stay with the 2 units below ground? You know how I feel about it.
I do. We still have one that's partially below ground. However, we're building one similar, and the window sizes are letting all kinds of daylight in. So I would think that the basement units are yeah, they're still full of daylight and yeah, I don't see any problem with them being partially underground.
Yeah, you're not living in it.
Any other questions, comments? No other questions or comments? We have a recommendation in front of you. What's your wish? You're moving it? Moved by Counselor Irwin, seconded by Counselor Nerda. All in favor? That is carried, sir. Deputy Mayor?
Comment to Ashley, if I may. And through you, Mr. Mayor, to do so. A lot of those aerial site plans, I'm very familiar with a lot of them. Some of them I'm not. I just wondered if they're, when they say to the east and to the west, can there be just a north direction put on some, so we know, when I look at some of the ones I'm not familiar with, when you direct, can that be put on some of those drawings? Please, thank you.
Yes, certainly. I can ask the mapping department to throw that on. That's not an issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, all right. I would like to, if it's all right with council, I would like to just move one report earlier, and that is on report number 8-3, the drainage superintendent. Joanne, if you're ready, I would move your report forward. And so that's on 59-2025, the Grace Lewis drain. Do you have someone to come up?
Yes, Brandon
All right.
from Spring. We
Perfect.
were gonna start with Brandon.
So good evening, everybody. My name's Brandon Widner. I'm one of the engineers at Spree Associates who was appointed on this project. We were appointed on this late last year. We had a meeting, I guess, an on-site meeting in late January. And then we did have another preliminary meeting with the landowners in August. So tonight we have a new drain. This drain is tributary to an existing drain called the Lewis Drain. This is located on the area of Adair and Cassidy Road. We had a request originally received from Grace Farms Limited. Their farm was in concession 11, lot 5. It was recently tiled. There is no municipal drain or outlet for that property. He was looking for approximately 2 outlets for the recent tiling that was completed. So that's what initiated the project. And that's kind of what you see today. So today we have a new drain being constructed, which we're calling the main drain. And then we also have a branch which serves as the Grace property, ironically called the Grace branch. And the drain will start down on Lewis Drain and Danny Lewis's farm. It then goes around his homestead or barnyard, goes up the property, basically parallel Adair, then crosses Adair and enters the Van High property. In the Van Highs, they did some tile work in the past. We're going to incorporate what's there, utilize it, but we are going to install a new road crossing on Adair, as well as obviously the branch up to Grace's. Now, the owners were all present at all the meetings to some extent. One was, I guess, attending virtually. We have upsized the drain beyond the typical standard. Usually municipal drains are designed to 1.5 inches in 24 hours. This one is a size above that based on the owner's requests. But that's what they were all looking for. So total cost of the project is approximately $162,000. There is an assessment to Adair Drive for the 2 crossings, as well as there's some assessment because currently all the tiles are now outletting into the road ditch on Adair. That will be rectified and installed into this new system. So I know some of the owners are here tonight, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Is there anything, Joanne, that you'd like to add at this time?
No, I just wanted to add that to mayor and members of council that the staff, the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that the council receives the report DIO 59 of 2025 regarding the final report for the Grace Lewis drain dated August 12th, 2025, prepared by Spree Associates for information, and that council accepts the final report for the Grace Lewis drain prepared by Spree Associates, and that the sitting of the quarter revision on behalf of the Grace Lewis drain be scheduled to be held on October 1st, 2025 at 5:50 p.m.
Thank you, Joanne. Is there any questions from council here on this? This isn't a public meeting. Councilor Knellison.
I have a question for our engineer here. Can you share with me the rationale why the municipal cost of it is like almost a third of the total cost? It's like $50,000 just to go across the Dare Road. Is that true?
Not entirely. So there's a couple components to your assessment. There's two crossings under Adair. One is located in Danny Lewis's over to Van Nuys. Another one is from Van Nuys and the Graces. So those crossings are assessed with special assessments. Those are broken down on page 5 of the report. They're approximately, one is 10,000. That is for a 12-inch subsurface pipe. We're not installing a surface culvert there. The other one, we are going to install a new surface and subsurface. That's further up the road, east per se. That approximately is $12,000. So there's approximately $22,000 of your assessment. If I remember correctly, your total assessment is more. There is $28,000 also assessed. Now, when you look at this situation currently, the Grace Farm is relying on private drainage currently, which is outletting on Adair Drive. The Van Nuys Farm is doing the same. So if you go to the plan, or if they can zoom in, station 695, essentially where everything comes in, there's a detail there in the middle of the page. Everything currently is dumping in the road ditch. In order for me to give the owners a new and improved outlet, I need additional depth. So if you look on the profile, those are all outletting in the road ditch, and approximately they're 2 to 3 feet deep. The new proposal will be 4 to 5 feet deep. So in order to push the drainage off a Dare, which we typically don't want municipal drains on the side of a road, there's some cost for that. So currently, if you look at Danny Lewis's farm, for instance, he's not taking all that water. He's draining some of his lands, some of the Grace property. Now all the water is going to go on his property, which currently went on a Dare. So it's pushing the drain or the water off of the Dare onto the Lewis farm. That's where you're picking up some of the assessment, which in turn lowers Danny's assessment, but he's currently not taking that. That's where the assessment's coming from. That being said, it is an estimated cost. If it comes in lower, everyone will save. If it comes in higher, unfortunately, everyone pays a bit more.
So that leads me to another question. So all the water is going to Mr. Lewis's farm. Where does he, is he able to discharge it? Where's he able to drain it to?
So everything goes down to what is called the Lewis Drain.
Okay, all right.
So, but currently the situation is it goes down Adair Drive, runs over or under his laneway, goes down to that culvert. Now, another thing you are seeing is there is a surface run, obviously, in Danny Lewis's. That run runs through the middle of his barnyard. In order to make everyone's lives easier, we went north of his entire homestead to avoid doing his lawn, doing his driveway, all that disturbance.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? No other questions in this. We have a recommendation which has been said. Councillor Keogh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. That is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne. Our next item is a delegation of BM Ross on the road needs study results. And Ken, I think you're coming. Yeah. Thanks, Joanne.
Good evening, council and staff, and thank you and members of the public for the opportunity to come speak today about this study that we started working on this spring and we finished up this month. So I'll work through the presentation. The presentation agenda includes it's easier to read on this side. Scope of the study. Then we'll work through the information on the traffic counts that we did. Then there's a road assessment, inventory information, and some of our general observations. Then we'll talk about some cost comparisons that we did with gravel, LCB, and HCB road types. Then we'll work through some of the road maintenance and the capital improvement needs that were identified. And we're going to provide some suggested budget amounts, including comments and then questions. If people have questions that they want to ask through, I don't mind, but I have a slot at the end to ask questions too. So with the scope of the assessment, we broke it down into 8 sections to explain it here. We've got the first part, we prepared the maps and the inventory of the assets and put them in the database. We used ArcGIS and Microsoft Access that are going to link together to do that information. We've reviewed the road surfaces in each road section and provided condition scores for each of them as we drove the roads. Completed traffic counts at 59 locations. Then we assembled and analyzed the data that was collected and to develop the priority list for the needs. Then we prepared benchmark costs of for potential rehabilitation options and for the repair options, and then we calculated the total cost for the work that was proposed. Presented these recommendations for discussion, and we made revisions to the report as per comments from staff, and provide a final report with the data for his asset management. I clicked on something. Sure. There, okay, working. Okay. There, go back up. Talk about the traffic counts. So a comprehensive set of traffic counts was collected at 59 locations, and these were collected over 3 days in the spring and to provide a good database. We calculated the AADT at the assessed locations and extrapolated to assess the traffic on other roads through consultation with staff. And just to clarify, AADT is the average annual daily traffic on each section of road. And that includes traffic going both ways on that road. The AADT is used to help predict the deterioration of the roads and to help prioritize the needs. And the assessed traffic ranges are also used to help define the maintenance class for each of the road sections. Traffic range and maintenance class maps are provided within the report. The road assessment methods. So the MTO has a methods and inventory manual that was created in 1992. And we've used that as a guide to how to assess the roads and prioritize the needs. It's fairly simplified method, but it's been effective and it's been used for a lot of different municipalities use a similar approach. We signed ID numbers for each of the road sections, surface and structural conditions ratings for each of them, drainage ratings. We made general observations while we were driving them. And if we thought there was a need for some repair work, we'd include what we thought was appropriate type of repair while they're driving the roads and make those notes as they're going. The construction history is added to our information that we've been collecting so that you've got that information for future reference so you can look back, see what's been done in the past in each road sections. Deterioration rates are used to predict the theoretical year of need. And we've set those deterioration rates up where we've got different deterioration rates based on the road type and the amount of traffic range that's on the roads. We develop a priority list of the needs based on the condition scores, the adequacy of the current design of the roads, and the traffic volumes. This slide just kind of helps to illustrate a little bit of priority scoring methods that we've set up. It's sort of a theoretical scoring method. The center box in the middle is probably the most important. That's your probability of failure, your condition score for the assets. And as I mentioned earlier, we use that condition score to help predict when our theoretical year of needs are. But what tends to happen is you get a lot of roads that end up having the same score. So then you want to say, okay, how do we decide further than that? So the top box that we have up there, it's a performance grade. So it's a score pertaining to, is the road built, say, the proper width, the way it should be, appropriate for the amount of traffic that it encounters? And also, is it high maintenance? So while we're driving the roads, we ask the staff, is there a lot of maintenance required on this road? Then maybe it's not been built up to proper standards. So that's another score thing we take into consideration there. And then on the bottom, we have that consequence of failure score. Consequence of failure means how many people are inconvenienced by this road if it's not performing in good condition, or how many are affected if it is in good condition. So that's basically your traffic data. But we also take into consideration sort of a criticality factor. If, say, there's a hospital or a school at the end, you don't like those roads being inconvenienced any more than necessary. So that might bump something like that up higher on the priority scoring. We take those scores and we combine them. The top two are combined to come up with a level of service score. The lower two we combine to come up with a risk score, and then combine them together to have a theoretical priority score. And this is just kind of used as a second guide to kind of help say, hey, this probably should be ahead of that one while we're going through the priority scoring. One thing to keep in mind, the scoring system, it doesn't take into account preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance are things that you want to try to incorporate into your process because they help to save you dollars if you're able to do that as you're going along. The scoring system is generally set up to help determine when it's time for a rehab and when you're determining which to do the rehab to. The next slide talks about the road inventory. This is just kind of a summary of the information that we gathered. The first table in the top left corner shows the amount of gravel roads, HCB, LCB roads that you have. You've got a total of 467 kilometers of roads. 363 of them are gravel. 100 are HCB with two or three lifts. And then you've got a few kilometers of each of the others. And just to clarify, so HCB stands for high class bituminous, so that's your traditional paved roads. And LCB is your low class bituminous, so it'll be your tar and chip roads. On the top right corner, we have another slide which shows the roadside environment. So that's whether it's an urban road or whether it's a semi-urban or it's a rural road. Your urban roads would be the ones with curb and gutters on them. Semi-urban, you'd have a road platform, but you'd have sort of a shallow swale on the side, and maybe you have ditch inlet structures that catch the water. And your rural is your traditional ones out in the country where you've got a full ditch and the water just runs down the ditches towards an outlet. And it lists the kilometers of each there, with most of your kilometers, 436 of them being the rural roads. On the bottom, we provide this table, and we usually use this to kind of give ourselves a guide to see whether we're keeping up to the amount of work that should be done on a long-term basis. What we've provided is the assumed life expectancy for the different road types. Gravel roads, what we've assumed is 100 years life. And generally with the gravel roads, you generally do mostly just maintenance on it, either by staff or whatever. And that might be, if you have 100-year life based on the number of kilometers of road you have, that means you should be fixing about 3.6 kilometers of gravel roads every year. But admittedly, you generally are doing that in kind of as a little maintenance packages. The LCB, we've done the same with assumed life of 6 years between recoating with the top lift of your LCB coating, and the HCB and the HCB3 listed them there. And it suggests that basically you should have about 3.5, say, kilometers of road should be rehabilitated each year is what it approximately works out to, based on theoretically, if that's the life expectancy. The condition rating for the road sections is presented here in the table, and when we do our condition ratings for the roads, we assign two components. One is pertaining to the road surface itself, so that'd be the asphalt on top or your crust on the gravel roads. And then the second one, we call it a structural rating. Our trained professional guys, technicians that are doing the review, we kind of look at the road and we say, is there something here that suggests that this road base is not performing well? Do you have like wheel rutting? Do you have issues with drainage? Do you have other factors? And those are incorporated in that structural rating. And you can see there your gravel roads were in the 7.6 to 7.7 scores. The LCB is 7.4 to 8. The HCB is 7.4 to 7.5. So overall average 7.6 to 7.7. Now, just to clarify what those scores mean, a road that's brand new would have a score of 10. And a road that's in time for rehabilitation would have a score of 5. They traditionally don't use the 1, 2, and 3. That's for like a dirt road sort of thing. So having scores in the 7.6 to 7.7, that's about middle of the range. That's about where you'd kind of like to be in that, you're about halfway through the life of the road surface. The table below, just a graphical representation of the same scores that you've got up above. which kind of shows they're, you know, in the middle there. Most of them are in the center for the gravel, and similar for your HCB, they kind of come off from the new and then move into that center category pretty quick usually. The next slide, this shows at the top the structural rating for the roads. Again, most of them are in that center category. The two figures at the bottom, they're showing the same information as those other two graphs. They're just presented in a different way. Some people prefer to look at it that way, and some prefer the graphic representation the other way. I probably won't go through that because same information that we've got above, it's just presented in a different way. We'll talk about our observations pertaining to the HCB high-class bituminous roads. The roads with the surface condition ratings of a 5 or lower, they're due for rehabilitation. But with HCB roads, if they have scores in the 6, they'd be typically due for some rehabilitation work in about the 5 to 9 year period, just based on the deterioration rates that you typically experience with the high-class bituminous roads. In rural areas, most of the paved roads are in fair to good condition. Many paved roads would benefit from some shoulder maintenance work. In Park Hill, roads ride very well, with most surfaces being in fair condition. However, some surfaces are tired and you've got a bit of wheel rutting and cracking starting to show up. Drainage appears to be in good to fair condition within that area. In Elsa Craig, it was noted that the roads are generally in fair condition, but many may need work over the next 10 years. Drainage appears to be in the fair to poor condition range. In Nair, most of the roads have been updated with curb and gutter and good drainage. Granular roads with good drainage and granular road structure. However, the paved surfaces in many of these are reaching the end of their life. Life expectancies with more maintenance repairs like crack sealing, spray patching and shoulder ditching improvement or localized repairs, they can help extend the life. Say if you decide we can't do this right now, you might have to just do some extra patching or some other repairs, and that can sometimes delay the need for repair work if budget restraints come in or something. That's another thing. Observations pertaining to the LCB roads. Most of the sections will need to be resurfaced within 10 years. That's just normal with LCB because they only last about every 6 to 7 years. You have to do a resurfacing of them. The LCB roads appear to be performing well in some areas, the through road areas especially, but not as well near the dead ends of some of the roads. And we suspect that has to do with, you know, you've got some good granular base, but the drainage is maybe not as well near the turnarounds at the end of at the cul-de-sac areas. LCB roads are affected, their performance is affected by the amount of traffic, the weight of the traffic, what kind of base is the granular base within the road, and drainage. And sometimes if you don't have enough shoulder to kind of provide some protection for that surface so that it doesn't start cracking and moving along the sides. Observations pertaining to the gravel roads. So most of the gravel roads are in fair to good condition. We typically are only recommending some maintenance work on the gravel roads that can be addressed by the municipal staff, i.e. some ditching work, brushing or widening. Many of the gravel roads would benefit from some drainage improvements. A few of the gravel roads should be raised to reduce the potential for flooding over top of the roads. Continued drainage improvement efforts such as ditch cleanouts and brush removals would be encouraged. Another common observation concerning encroachment of the agricultural lands onto the right of way. This negatively affects the performance of the road because you don't have your ditches to provide the drainage that you should have. So we're suggesting some sort of ditch reclaiming program should be considered, and you'd probably start that with the roads that are a little more heavily traveled, then kind of work your way from there. Some of the roads, the gravel roads, they've got a soft surface early in the spring, and that's not uncommon. And usually that's acceptable for a short period at the start of the spring. It's a bit of an inconvenience, and then as a township staff work through it, they usually come along and they do all right. But drainage would probably help if there's areas that are really bad, then it might be a case of the drainage isn't performing that well in that area. To sustain the existing level of service for the gravel roads, we recommend the current maintenance programs be continued to at least the same level or better to maintain them. The next slide I have, it's commonly we're asked, we like to change our roads from gravel to LCB or HCB. So clients often ask, well, what's the cost to maintain these roads? So we've put together for most of the clients, we put together this table to help them look at that information, to help appreciate what the cost differences are. And one thing I'll maybe state before I go through this is the fact that we're using numbers from the municipality. We're not using numbers from elsewhere. We've taken the data that we've obtained from staff as to your costs for gravel and calcium and sand and chlorides when we did these assessments. And with the gravel roads, their cost is all maintenance. So you're looking at your gravel application, your calcium, and allowance for the staff to do their work on those roads. With the low-class bituminous and with the HCB, there's less annual maintenance, but there's still annual maintenance because you're putting your sand and salt on it every year, and you don't need that on the gravel roads, but you're putting that on the LCB roads only. And then what we've done for the capital costs on them, we've annualized the cost. So we've taken what the cost is to do it, like with the LCB every 6 years, and annualized that over for an annual basis. And we presented some numbers there. And as you can see, based on the numbers that we're seeing from your municipality, the gravel works out to about $5,900 per kilometer. The LCB, $9,500, and the HCB, $12,000 per kilometer to maintain them on an average annual basis. Factors to consider if you do want to change from, say, gravel to HCB. With the gravel, yes, you do have a few bad weeks in the spring, but usually you can fix that up with a grader fairly soon afterwards. Gravel roads tend to provide a softer surface spring, especially when it's wet. I guess we've got that note kind of in there twice. Gravel roads, a lot of municipalities, they start thinking at about 400 vehicles a day is kind of a threshold where they start to think about switching them from gravel to LCB or HCB. That's kind of a typical number that people start considering it. But if you are going to switch a road from gravel to HCB or high-class bituminous, we'd recommend you do a geotechnical report to investigate what the base of the road, what kind of condition. Are the granulars good? Do you have issues with too much silt and fines within the gravels, or is it good condition? Road improvements, if you do road improvements from gravel to one of the others, it tends to increase the need for maintenance and winter control because now you're going to have more traffic. Those roads will draw more traffic towards them. The cost for the gravel and calcium are increasing each year, but so are the costs for the road salts, the sands, high-class bituminous, the crack sealing. Everything's going up in costs. So, and one other thing to keep in mind is once you increase the level of service, say you move it from a gravel to an asphalt road, it's very difficult to move it back the other way. So next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about minimum maintenance standards. The road maintenance on Ontario is governed by this regulation 23902, which is a minimum maintenance standards for municipal highways, which it also includes requirements for sidewalks and bike lanes. The classification of highways is based on the speed, the average daily traffic volumes on those roads. And those classifications, they're used to determine the applicable minimum maintenance that's required by your staff. Minimum maintenance standards, they include things like patrolling frequencies, winter maintenance like snow and ice removal requirements, roadside maintenance needs, if you have potholes and cracks, sort of how quickly they should be fixed, signs, luminaire inspections, minimum timing for temporary and permanent repairs. The table at the bottom, we kind of listed with the road classes down the left-hand side from 1 to class 6. One would be like a freeway, so we don't need to worry about that, but you can see most of yours are in the 3, 4, and 6 categories. And you can see the number of kilometers that are included within each, with most of them being in the 4 and 5 and 6 categories. So minimum maintenance standards, just continuing on with that, examples of some of the requirements. For example, with the frequency for patrolling, with a class 3 road, it's every 7 days. Class 4, it's every 14 days, and a class 5, it's every 30 days. Snow accumulation, there's requirements based on the amount of snow that you accumulate, how soon they're supposed to be out there to do their rounds to remove the snow. Ice formation, how quickly they'd be out there, pothole repairs. You know, we've got 7, 14, and 30 days. Shoulder drop off repairs are listed in there as well. Now, we didn't list the requirements for class 6 because a class 6, they're not required to comply by that. A lot of municipalities try to build it into their class 5 categories, but a class 6 road is basically a road with less than 50 vehicles a day. So some of them might be no winter maintenance roads and things like that don't have a lot of traffic on them anyways. So that's the status for class 6 roads. With sidewalks, includes the requirements for annual inspections to check for discontinuity, of tripping hazards. There's requirements for winter maintenance and that. We didn't get into the details here, but those are the features that are required with the sidewalks. With the retro reflectivity on your signs, they're to be checked every 16 months. And then please note with regard to accessibility, the AODA standards, accessibility of Ontario, those guidelines, they're more stringent than the minimum maintenance standards, but those are only applicable when you're reconstructing the roads or the sidewalks or whatever. That's when they govern. Examples of maintenance on sidewalk repairs we've got down there would include highlighting defects or tripping hazards with paint short term, and then coming in and patching with a ramp or to mill down the concrete just so it's not a tripping hazard. I'll talk about LCB and HCB road maintenance, the typical things. We've got maintaining your drainage, the ditches, crack sealing, asphalt patching at the appropriate time, additional costs to do shoulder grading, line painting, cold mix patching on the HCB and LCB roads are addressed by staff. And we've gone through some of that, looked at some of the numbers that you had, and an allowance of 126,000 per year is recommended to address the needs for maintenance on the gravel LCB and HCB roads. With gravel maintenance roads, maintaining suitable drainage on the sides, clean out ditches, tree removals, trim back the trees that are encroaching over the roads. To improve drainage, consider your ditch reclaiming program in locations where the agriculture are encroaching on the road in the right of way. Grading the road several times a year to minimize potholes, resurfacing the roads with well-graded material, calcium chloride, typically annually if you've been doing, helps to maintain that sort of like a crust on top of the gravel roads. That helps to shed the water and it helps for regrading of the surface to take away inconsistencies in the road. Well, sometimes you get your waving action that shows up. Resurfacing may be delayed every 2nd or 3rd year, and some of the roads that don't have very much traffic, I think you're already doing that on some of them already. But if you get too far behind and you don't put enough granular on it, it will catch up in the future. And then sometimes you get spongy roads and you'll have to do a whole bunch of catch up. So you have to be careful you don't get too skimpy on it. So some general comments. So we've got no upgrade surface types are being proposed with the plan the way we have it. That's like going from a gravel to one of the others. Upgrading roads from the LCB or HCB can create increased traffic volumes, and we found that with Google Maps and stuff like that. If you have a paved road, all of a sudden everybody takes traffic down them. Get some clients, their roads have really jumped the traffic. They come off the highway, provincial highway, and they start using their roads. The road study creates priorities based on the road conditions. There are other infrastructure needs within the municipality, though, that you have to take into consideration. So sometimes it's appropriate to delay some of your road work so you can do all that work at the same time. So you may have to do some patching, you may have to shuffle your schedule to incorporate other needs, and we recognize that. So this is provided as a suggested timeline for doing the work, and staff may have to adjust things. When creating the proposed schedule, efforts were made to group similar projects in close proximity to help with some economies of scale. So if you're working all in one municipality, it's usually more cost effective. But one area, so one village or whatever. So this is a summary of the costs that we had, and I don't know if you read the numbers from there, but I either got to put my glasses on, I can actually read it from there, but anyways. But the numbers, they range from about 1.4 million per year up to, I think it's 2.8 instead of the high, with an average being around 1.85 million per year, which I understand is a little higher than where you have been in the recent past, so it's a slight increase. Costs are presented in the proposed year there. But like I said, staff may need to shuffle things around over time. These maps, and I'm not going to go into detail because there wasn't our intention to go into specific details on different road sections, but just showing we've included within the reports maps that are highlighted with the proposed year of work. So if you work through the maps, you can see the different color highlighting for each year, and you can see what's being proposed. Do have some, I think, up on the one area there being proposed with this map. If you go to the next one, you got in Park Hill, you can see different colors throughout there, different roads with some recommendations within different years. And Elsa Craig, similar, we've got some roads with suggested improvement years. And same with Carlisle, and there we've got another map for each of them. So summary of the recommended improvements. As we discussed earlier, we've got 126,000 in there suggested for the annual maintenance. With the road improvements, they're ranging from that 1.4 to the 2.8, with the total average working out when you include your maintenance budget about 1.97 million per year. And the above cost, they're probable costs based on, they're relatively small projects. The projects are normally the projects that are normally administrated by your staff, we've reduced out most of the engineering and mid costs because we're assuming it's going to be done by your staff. The costs are presented in $2025, and they have not been inflated over time. They're just based on $2025. HST has been excluded from those numbers, so it's that's how the numbers were calculated for prisoners. So our concluding comments, recommendations to increase maintenance and capital improvement budget slightly, the capital budget about 1.85 million per year. Overall road systems appear to be in fair to good condition, with several road sections due for replacement or rehabilitation. Provided some priority scorings in the road to help staff prioritize their improvements over time. We recommend you allow staff some flexibility to line up with other infrastructure projects. The suggested budget numbers do not take into account potential cost savings if you were to get some economies of scale. By grouping things together, it might help a little bit with the pricing. And the road needs are to be monitored and adjusted over time. So presentation, if you have some questions.
Okay, thank you. Who wants to start? Questions? Councillor Irwin?
Thanks, Worship. I only have two. One refers to slide number 4, traffic count. Now the AADT was done in the spring, but some of our roads are under construction then. So how do we allow for the average counts for those roads being constructed or down to single lanes at that time?
So when we do the traffic counts, we consult with the staff to some extent to try to understand, we have this information here and there throughout. And I'm not sure how much it lined up with your construction. Did it line up very much with the construction or was it?
No, it didn't really affect the construction that much at all. Like, we only did really like 58 spots. So it didn't really affect anything that way for construction wise.
I know in Queen Street North, your worship, I can continue. In Queen Street North, outside of Elsa Craig, traffic was way down because of the work being done on the road resurfacing for the new water line. So I was just curious how that was taken into account. I know I mentioned that previously to the Director of Infrastructure. Traffic just starting to pick up again on that road, so I'm curious about that.
I guess what I can say is we based it on the traffic count data that we had. And then we did some consultation with the staff to see whether that seemed appropriate. I believe there was also you had some previous traffic data from previous years that we looked at that for comparison. So we wouldn't have dropped the numbers down very much. We would have looked at what previous years were suggesting too, when we were coming up with what we thought was appropriate numbers.
Okay, Sam.
Yeah, through your worship to the council, I just was gonna add that we obtained all the county traffic count data that they had, which we also provided, and then we provided previous traffic count data as well. So it wasn't just the new counts, it was all the data that we had and all the data that the county provided us too.
Okay, thank you.
And the second one, your worship, is simply a memory question for myself. On slide 17 and again on this slide, the second last slide, you discuss an allowance of 126,400 a year for maintenance. Just refresh my memory, what are we spending now on road maintenance?
Brandon or Sam?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So that 146,000, that or 64,000, that doesn't include fresh gravel or calcium that way. Right now it's just all, we don't have a lot of programs up and going yet. We're trying to get them going, I would say, but yeah, I would say it would just be more of the time, staff's time would be the cost right now for doing anything.
Just to clarify, your worship, so that's all new? The 126,000?
Yeah, like, that's a question, is that including any staff time in that 126, or is that dollars spent?
So what we typically do, we'll look at how you guys have presented it in the past. And we try to keep it consistent with how your annual budgets are presented for maintenance. And if sometimes staff is incorporated somewhere else, or if the gravel is incorporated somewhere else, but normally we would include the gravel. So maybe some clarification might be needed there. I would think we include the gravel, but maybe not staff, but I'm not positive on that.
So yeah, I know it's not like gravel in it at all on that end, or calcium, but I would say yeah. It would be more like it'd be like, these would be more of like your projects that we would do, like crack sealing moving forward, doing these actual preventative maintenance programs that we've never really done here that would probably take this more of a cost on that end.
Okay, thank you. Sam?
Yeah, through your worship, just to add to what the manager of public works said, I would suggest that 126,000 is certainly on the what would be deemed low end or minor works, like obviously with a budget of 126,000, even for preventative maintenance, that certainly doesn't go very far. So I guess I just want to temper expectations that whatever minor improvements that would get, it would certainly be deemed minor.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay,
Just to help me out here, I'm seeing slow tonight. Is this new money for our budget, or is this money that we've repackaged from previous budgets?
go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, through your worship to the council, I would not classify it as new money. The number that has been put forward by BM Ross is certainly based on historic budgetary values. So it's not a number that's coming from zero, no.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm just gonna go around the table, all right?
Trying to be patient.
Okay,
I do have a question for you. I appreciated your presentation very much. I was looking forward to it. The question I have is farm equipment. Did you notice the impact that farm equipment is getting bigger, more of it? Is that having an impact on our roads?
I think farm equipment has an impact on everybody's roads to some extent. But I think a lot of times the farm equipment does have, like if you're doing, say, for example, manure spreading, you've got your pneumatic tires, which help distribute it a certain amount. I think it's probably when the farm equipment's on it real early in the year during that spring thaw time period, that's when it would become more of an impact. It's hard to avoid that, you know, they've got a right to go. So, but is it having a big impact on the roads? It's kind of figured in with all the other traffic. It's there, you've been experiencing, that's kind of the deteriorations we've taken into account. I don't know if it's a lot different now than it has been in the past. You know,
Okay.
they're heavier equipment, but there's maybe less of it because you're gonna have.
I have one more
bigger
question.
loads.
One more question, and that is, every year, we all get these calls about the gravel that we put on in the spring is plowed into the ditches in the winter and in the fall. You got any suggestions how to keep it where we put it?
It's
Mhm.
it's difficult. You put your gravel on typically in the spring, so usually by the later in the year, it's been graded, and you try not to grade it too late in the year, so it's got a chance to reset up for the winter. But if winter hits early, sometimes it's hard to avoid.
You weren't expecting a magic answer to that, were you?
I was looking for some answer.
Okay,
Thank you.
it's a tough one. Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can, probably a two-part question and simple one. Number one, you said in one of the earlier slides that it was a 3-day road count in the spring. Was it 3 days through the week, or did that include a weekend? 3 days. Was it a weekend travel count or
I'm
a
pretty
weekday?
sure it was
count?
during the week, but I'm not positive on that. I think it was during the week.
Okay. And the second part, probably for Sam or Brandon. Can we see the numbers? Can you share those numbers with council? Where those counts were and the count number of each road? Can that be shared with all of council just for information sakes?
Sam.
Through your worship to council, I just add if in their report that's appended to Brandon's staff report here, in the tables at the back, there's a column that has all the ADT results there. It's broken up into ranges though, so if you want the exact count, we can like the exact down to the car count, we can certainly give that to you, but the ranges are in the appendices as well.
Okay. Counselor Nerda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question. My friend, Councillor Nelson, he already asked my question regarding farm equipment, but were there any roads in the traffic count that exceeded 400 vehicles a day?
I believe the class 3 ones probably would. There wasn't, like, if you go through that table that shows the categories, I believe there were some. Yes, probably not a lot.
Okay, Brandon.
Maybe you've got access to that information right there.
Yeah.
Through the mayor to the councillor. So for our municipality, there's only one section of class 3, and that's the Neck Road that Middlesex Center looks after for us. And that's from Highway 7 to Fernhill Drive. The rest of our roads are class 4 or 5 or 6.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay. Counselor Keel.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. This one might piggyback off of Councillor Irwin's, but I'm just gonna maybe go toward the bigger number. Ken had mentioned that recommended budget amounts should be around $1.85 million a year for in order to keep the roads in satisfactory condition. For information for anyone listening to this or watching this on YouTube, what have we been budgeting in the big number?
Go ahead, Sam.
Through your worship to the councillor, and certainly Brandon might be able to speak to this better than me. Notwithstanding Sylvan Road, which was just obviously added this year, I don't believe there was really any budget carried for an asphalt program of any kind other than very minor hardtop maintenance, which is generally under 100,000. So at least based on the numbers I've seen for at least the last 2 years, if not longer, other than the gravel and calcium, there's been virtually nothing carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Daigle.
I just want to reiterate, Councillor Hodgins or Deputy Mayor Hodgins, pardon me. the traffic counts and where they happen. I have some ratepayers that are demanding to know if what it was on their road type of thing. And I'd like to be able to respond.
Sam?
Yeah, through your worship to the councillor, we have a list of the account locations. We can certainly provide that.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Just one more, Mayor. And again, this will be for anyone that's watching or listening. So this is a road study. When's our bridge study up for renewal?
Sam?
Through your worship to the councillor, that is also ongoing through BM Ross as well. I was just actually in correspondence with them this morning. The hope is that within the next 2 to 3 weeks, pardon me, they'll have drafts in front of us for review. So it's certainly staff's intention that we will have the OSIMs in front of council, hopefully sometime in October.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any specific questions. I don't think that haven't been asked other than, sorry, go ahead.
Through you to the counselor, regarding Counselor Irwin's previous question about the 126. If you take a look at Brandon's report on page 5, it specifically states that the 126 covering tasks such as ditching, shouldering improvements, drainage enhancements, and spot resurfacing. This amount is in addition to the regular operating budget for gravel and calcium application. So it is, if you'll recall from the budget, there are subsections for those pieces. So they're recommending that those areas maintain at least 126,000 a year in their budgets, possibly fluctuating between them as needs, but that's the min that those areas should have. And then the gravel and the calcium should be separate in terms of what their budgets are.
Okay, thank you, Ralph.
So it's new. Or is it reprofiled?
It's not necessarily new, but I think if we were to take a look at our historic numbers over the last 5 years, it's higher.
Okay, go ahead, Ken.
If I might clarify, just thinking about how that number was created. As our person was driving the road, they might notice things that they thought should be fixed up, like, oh, you've got some problems here, you should maybe fix a ditching here, and you should do some other work. So basically what they did is they identified things that they thought should be repaired. A lot of them might be able to be done by municipal staff. But we assigned dollars to it as if you hired somebody else to do the work. And we took that total amount of work that you identified through a review and just divided it over the duration of the 10 years. So you could say it's new, but it's probably, most of it will probably be done by municipal staff over the 10-year period, and we just let them sort out which one to do first. It was just a bunch of suggested repair work.
Okay. No other questions? I just want to say I appreciate the report. There's a lot of information in it. And the counts, like as you pointed out, Sam, that there's information in the report that you're bringing forward. So thank you very much for your time. Next is the report that you're bringing forward, and Brandon, are you doing that? Okay.
To the mayor and members of council, before you this evening is report DYO 57/2025, which presents the results of the 2025 road needs study presented by BM Ross Associates Unlimited. At the time of completion of this report, key highlights are as follow. The study reviewed all the municipal roads, 467.7 kilometers of a road network, 363 gravel, 2 kilometers tar and chip, and 102 asphalt. Maintenance programs recommended ongoing with gravel and dust control, approximately 45,000 tons of gravel and 3 million liters of calcium annually. Drainage and shoulder improvements and for protective road base. Pavement maintenance programs, asphalt rehabilitation, crack sealing, tar and chip program, slurry sealing, fiber mats or micro surfacing. Sidewalk renewal, extension of for safety and accessibility. Capital plan highlights, 10-year forecast is 18.5 million. rehabilitation of 35 kilometers of asphalt and 2 kilometers of tar and chip road. Peak spending in 2020 or 2031 would be 2.82 million. That would be 3.8 kilometers of asphalt rehab. Large single year rehab in 2033 would be 8.2 kilometers of asphalt. All Carlisle tar and chip roads resurfacing together in 2027 for cost efficiency. Financial total capital forecast is 18,505,000 over 10 years, plus an annual of 126,000 for specific maintenance for drainage shouldering, pot repairs. No gravel roads no gravel roads scheduled for capital upgrades. Recommendation in front of council this evening are as follow: that council receive report DIO 57/2025 regarding the road needs study 2025 for information, and that the findings be incorporated into the municipal's asset management plan, and that staff submit the recommended projects for consideration in future budgets. Happy to answer any questions. If there's any.
Okay. Thanks, Brandon. Any questions for Brandon? Councilor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Brandon, a few years ago, we would have annualized funding for to maintain our asphalt roads. Is it your intention to continue with that now that you've had some success with Sylvan Road?
Through the mayor to the council, yes. That would be my goal moving forward, yes.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of you. Moved by Councilor Canellison, second by Councilor Keough. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Ken. Our next is a report from the Director of Infrastructure and Operations, the Blue Water Recycling Services update. Sorry we kept you here so long, but who's going to start here, Sam? Are you starting?
Yep, thank you, Your Worship, and to you and all the members of council. Before you this evening is report DIO 58 of 2025, which carries forward from a report that was in front of council at its last meeting in August, as it relates to the update that Michelle from Blue Water provided, and then the proposed organics collection program that was brought forward. At the last council meeting, it was deferred that staff come back with a third option, which is called Proposal C, which looked at organic waste collection in the urban centers only of Elsacrag and Park Hill. So that's been added to the report. And what we also added in this report as well was an additional item that Tri Recycling brought forward in the way of they are offering to give us quite a bit of compost for free every single year that we are allowed to do with what we will. As part of just looking to be cyclical, we send the material to them, they compost it, they give it back to us, and we can give it back to our residents for free or use it. So what's new with this report is the addition of Proposal C, and I'll go through the numbers in a second here. And then just that addition from Tri Recycling as well with the free compost. So if you go further down in my report, you'll note that, like I said, we added a Proposal C. Proposal A is still being recommended as the municipality-wide organic collection, so that would be biweekly waste and recycling, and then organics collection every week, and that's municipality-wide again, and that was at a cost of $178.09 per household. And the Proposal B, which again is municipality-wide, and that's everything every week, so that's garbage, recycling, and green bin every week, and that's at roughly $228.59 per household. And again, that's not being recommended just due to the very high cost and the limited benefit that that brings. And then finally, again, the Proposal C, which is the additional option that's being brought forward, which is the weekly green bin pickup and then the biweekly garbage and recycling, but that only includes Elsacrag and Park Hill. So I'll note that that is at roughly the exact same cost as Proposal A, and I'll leave that to Michelle to explain further on how they make that work. But what I did do is separate that there will be different costs for the urban households versus the rural, because some are going to be paying for it and some won't. So that's detailed within the report. And then I also added a financial context section that just sort of breaks down what the cost per household was in 2023 before the transition levels happened. And then again in 2025, post-transition, with the proposals that are recommended, you can kind of compare the cost to see how it correlates between what it used to be versus what it was now. And that's sort of what we've changed. So perhaps before I go into my recommendations and questions, I can turn it over to Michelle to briefly talk about Proposal C a little bit more.
All right, go ahead, Michelle.
So not much to really add other than, so we looked at the roads. I know when I was here last, I said I'd have to relook at it to see what the costing would be. We were able to look at our current routes, and we actually have a third help truck within the area on the days that we collect Park Hill and Elsie Craig. So we're able to look at them and separate it as such that we wouldn't have to add additional cost to doing the urban only area. So we could do it at the same price. The issue really becomes that the rural area not getting any additional service, the cost per household shouldn't change, their cost wouldn't be affected. However, you're not reducing the amount of material going to the landfill and diverting the material like you would if you did the whole municipality wide. So then to look at the additional cost to a household, it makes the urban areas more expensive to do organic collection by about $10 a household because of the less diversion to the landfill, and it's a little bit more expensive to divert or to landfill the material than have it processed at the organics at Tribe Recycling. So that's the difference there.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Carolyn.
I just wanted to add, if I may, to, and maybe Sam was going to cover it, but I just wanted to draw council's attention to something that I think is fairly important that don't want to have it missed, that the budgetary values in our budget for the last few years, when we look at it, it's on page, which page is that? I think it's the second last page of the report. Oh, it's the last page of the report. Sam outlines what the budgetary values were for 23, 24, and again in 25. And you can see that, you know, how high it was in 23 and how much we've carried through on. So I just wanted to draw that to everyone's attention.
Okay, thank you. Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And the only thing I was going to add, and perhaps our treasurer would like to speak to this as well. I highlighted in my report there, with a proposal like Proposal C, it's certainly far more complicated from a staff and administration perspective than the other proposals because it's not everybody, it's only certain folks. So I just wanted to highlight that it's not necessarily captured in the per household cost per se, but it will be exponentially more complicated from a staff and administration perspective.
Ralph, do you want to speak to that?
I concur.
Okay.
I told Sam that I would scream blue bloody murder if we actually went with this because you're going to create a different service level for different residents, which means now that when we're doing the tax bills where these are being charged, we have to now start going through and saying this batch has to be done this way, this batch has to be done that way. It isn't just a case of here's the roll number, here's the assessment, here's the rate, here's this service, they get charged a flat rate and there it goes. Now it's where are they, which bin are they getting, what problem? And, you know, we just spent, I would say 3 weeks going through and making sure that everybody was being charged for the right bins under the current system, let alone what it's going to be like when they're having 3 different types of bins.
Okay. All right, thank you. Questions from council? Well, Sam, did you have something to add to that again? Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to lastly add my recommendations, and then we can
Go ahead.
open it up to questions. So the recommendations in front of this council this evening are as follows: that council receives report DIO 58 of 2025 regarding the blue water recycling update, proposed addition of organics collection for information, and the council for the municipality of North Middlesex supports, notwithstanding future budget development and approval, the submission of a letter of intent to the Blue Water Recycling Association indicating the municipality's interest in participating in the program and that staff strongly recommend proposal A, the municipality-wide collection as the preferred model as it delivers the best value, the best level of service, minimizes, pardon me, administrative complexity, and ensures environmental and fiscal responsibility. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Question. Go ahead, Councillor Nerda.
Thank you, Mayor. Sam, so if my reading and math is correct, there is increased cost to residents if we go with option A. So we're putting about $49 onto the ratepayer.
Sam.
Through your worship to the counselor. So this is where partially what Carolyn mentioned kind of comes into play. When you compare the cost per household values, that is correct. But when you take into consideration what we've actually been budgeting versus what we've been spending, that's where it goes incorrect, that we've been budgeting and carrying far more than we actually need to based on the cost that we have with Blue Water. So if you compare the cost to cost, yes. If you factor in that we've been carrying more than we need to, no.
Right, but there still is increased cost to the ratepayer. If we go with this program with not the option to opt out.
Through your mayor to the counselor, no. My understanding is that there would be no cost increase. That's not covered by the budget that we already have carried.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think where the issue is the recycling cost was in there at the taxpayers back in 2023. And you were charging the taxpayers, you didn't decrease their cost. So you've been staying, actually, I think you increased the cost of the waste bin. So that we're actually still cheaper than what your cost was in 2023. And you haven't saved anything. Like you haven't reduced their cost of their bin cost, even though the recycling cost fell off to the municipality.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
okay. Other questions? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. I just need clarification because at the last presentation, my understanding was that it'd be about $34 per household. Now I see that there's a processing charge as well. Do the households pay for that processing charge in addition to $34?
Yep. The $34 is what we charge. The processing charge is from Tri, but that was all worked in. These numbers are the exact same as we presented.
So then the residents will also be paying recycling as well.
Well, it would go through either the municipality, like it wouldn't go directly to the resident. But indirectly, it would be on their tax bill, yes.
And one other question I have, I understand you've made presentations to other municipalities in our vicinity, some of them larger. How many other of these municipalities have accepted your proposal and gone with it?
So I'm still in exactly the same process you guys are, right, or I am with you as well. Meeting with Strathroy Caradoc on Friday, actually. And then everyone seems to be wanting to present it at budget time. So Middlesex Center, South Huron, North Perth is doing a presentation to council next week. So I don't have anyone accepted, but I have everyone kind of at the same.
So
position
everyone's
as you.
deferred it for the time being.
They're considering it for 2026 is really what they're looking at. No one has taken on for 2025. No.
Okay, so it wouldn't be unusual for us to defer this as well.
If that's the way you would like to go. Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of concerned because the feedback I've gotten, I don't know about the other members of council, but the feedback I've got from the people in my area, the people who called me, is that they're resistant to this. They don't want it. And I feel like we're forcing something on them that our people do not want.
Sam.
Thank you, your worship. I have nothing to add. Michelle captured what I was going to say.
Oh, okay. Other questions? Deputy Mayor Hodgins and Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things I'm just wondering, and I can maybe ask, and I'm gonna say probably ask because you maybe don't know for sure. I would like to see, we've basically just discussed it here. I wondered if council and staff would be up for a public meeting to discuss this further to the people, to either get them interested and fill them in with what's going on and see if they are some that are interested and make this go better. But right now, they're relying on us to provide them with information and they feel like all of a sudden, well, there's $34 a, all of a sudden there's another cost. But I'd like to have something to, lay it out to them like, okay, maybe it is beneficial, maybe it's not. But I wondered if council would be up for a public meeting on this.
Okay, just a minute. Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, your worship. Just a couple of points here. Page 6 clearly shows that our residents are paying $197.52 currently for garbage and recycling pickup. now that we have the rebate from the recycling, with this proposal, they would be paying $178.09 or $20 cheaper. So it's not an increase with this add-on service. It's still cheaper than what we are currently paying or have paid in the past. Secondly, and this was presented at the last meeting, and I want to remind council of this, our landfill site has at most 10 years. And if we don't do something, we're going to have to truck our garbage somewhere, maybe Dresden or maybe Detroit. But our landfill site only has 10 years. So last council meeting, we proposed construction waste material, which will save us significantly from a landfill site. This will save, I think our numbers showed about 40% of our municipal garbage is green waste. So that will add to our landfill site considerably. So either we consider where we're going to be 10 years from now, trying to find a new landfill site or not. And also looking at the numbers compared to what we have been paying up until this budget year is $20 a household cheaper with this proposal. And finally, and thank you for presenting this, Proposal A includes everyone. Proposal C is only the settlement areas of Elsa Craig and Park Hill. So places like Nairn, Brinsley, Carlisle, Larry, etc., would be excluded, so they wouldn't have the service, even though they are basically urban services, correct?
Yes, based on the recommendation last council, it was only LC Craig and Park.
Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And just to add to the councilor's point, which might help provide some clarity with the numbers, the costs in the budget, like the cost that we incur from Blue Water, it's not entirely tax funded. Like the municipality pays for a portion of it. So that's back to my point earlier. The number that's carried in the budget is higher than we actually incur with Blue Water because the municipality pays for part of that, not through the tax levy. So I hope, in addition to what the councilor noted there, that provides some clarity that the budget numbers you see don't cover the costs entirely because the municipality does pay a portion of the cost we incur directly to Blue Water and not by tax levy.
Councillor Daigle and Councillor Keel.
Thank you. I want to say that by looking at option C, we're assuming that nobody in the rural areas wants to be in this project. And if they do, we can't add them. I'm ready to make a motion that we go with option A. And I would put that on so that all ratepayers are treated the same.
Okay, so you're making that a motion. Is there a seconder for that so we can have discussion? Councillor Irwin will second it.
I assume the councillor is moving all the recommendations of staff.
Yes.
And I second them all.
And then, but using A. Councillor Keel.
We're sitting here making the decision for the ratepayers. Are the ratepayers even interested in taking part, participating in this? That's, I guess, my concern, that I would really hate to commit to entering into a program, yet having 15 people call me, in the future saying, I don't want this. Or not going for it, and 15 people calling and saying, I am for this. So I certainly think that we should just take a little bit more effort in finding out if there is an appetite for this program. Then it's easier to make a decision.
Okay. Councillor Nerda.
Those were my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on this? Councillor Irwin.
Just one additional point, and I happen to sit on the committee with the mayor of Blue Water, who discussed this was the same debate they had 25 years ago around blue boxes, where only one or two community wanted blue boxes. And then a year later, everybody bought into the blue box program. So we're at the same spot. We're green bins and we were at blue boxes a generation ago.
And I would say that happened with wheelie bins as well. I know that the rural area, we heard quite a bit about switching to wheelie bins, that people wouldn't be able to take them out and stuff. So your point's well taken, and I think that the deputy mayor had that as well, but to your motion, is to be considered for 2026 is part of that motion. Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. But I just want to clarify, and again, Michelle might be able to speak to this better than me. My understanding is that obviously everything we're talking about here today, if we want it to happen in 2026, it's going to need to happen fairly soon. So I'm certainly not opposed to doing public consultation if that's where it goes, but I guess I'll just probably preface by saying 2026 is likely not going to be feasible if that's the route we go, just as an extra data point. And again, Michelle, you might be able to correct me.
So I do have a question. We're still going next year to bi-weekly pickup, correct? Because of the new legislation of not using the same truck.
So you're only regulate, or the producers are only required by the regulation to do bi-weekly, but we haven't got a change order yet. So you're not required to go, we haven't heard that they're gonna change it. And they told us they'd let us know by the end of 24 if there was a change order for 26. So next year, if everything were to stay the same, you would still have weekly recycling collection. They're just not required, so it's probably coming down the pipeline at some point.
Okay.
But not currently. The only other point I'd like to bring up is when going to public consultation is, as you can kind of see from 2023 to 2025, there's $323,000 in savings that you've had with the blue box going over to the producers. The idea from the ministry was to divert that material from the landfill in a different way other than blue box. So it just needs to be transparent to the residents. If that money that you've saved is not going to organics, then where is that money going? Because we're getting that when we're going out to do outreach to residents and explaining to them that now we're not paid by the municipalities, we're paid by the producers. They're asking, well, why didn't my waste costs go down? Why didn't, so we say, I think they're looking at other opportunities to divert material from the landfill, and like it can be through your transfer station, through C&D and other options, but you'll just want to have some kind of like a transparent answer as to where those funds are going.
Okay, thank you. I think the point made about the landfill, the amount that we're saving in landfills is an important point to this whole discussion. But is there other comment? Because we do have a motion on the floor. No other comments? In favor of the motion? Opposed? 4 opposed. That does not pass. Is there another motion on the floor? I'm not seeing one. Councillor Irwin.
Yes, your worship, I propose that we implement a public consultation on this process. And get feedback from the community around the green bins with an information campaign.
Okay, you're making that a motion? You're seconding that?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? In favor of that? Okay, that is carried. Thanks for your time. So are we requesting, no, go ahead. Are we requesting staff to form a letter to send out for the information?
Well, I would think if you, Mayor, like the quick decision, or quick answer, put that proposal in with your tax bill. I'm sure that they'll take a minute to fill out the form, whether they're in. or
Yeah, I agree. There's ways to send it out.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's getting a letter form to do that. That's. Not until the first of the year. It may have to be a separate bailout.
Staff will come up with a campaign and find out the best way to implement it. We'll talk about a few different ways that we can do that, and let council know.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. Councillor Nelson.
Yes, Mayor. And as you know, Mr. Mayor, in the past, we always had public consultations in Elsa Craig and Park Hill, where in addition to the social media thing that we did, and people could attend in person, which I'm not opposed to.
Okay. All right, we're done with that. The next one is from Brandon Drew, and that's the Leisure Club the air conditioner replacement.
So Mayor Rott, members of council, this report is an information update. The Leisure Club did lose their air conditioning unit on August 14th. Staff have since sourced a new air conditioner and had it installed and replaced. This was an unbudgeted replacement, and staff felt it was an emergency just due to the summer we've had, and we always promote Coronation Park as a cooling area where you can go and get cool, and that facility does serve as our park washrooms. So this is just an information report, and a full funding strategy will be included with the Q3 variance and the year-end forecast report provided to council later this fall. So at that, if there's any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we have a motion to accept for information. Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Brandon. And your next one is the water heater replacement.
Yeah, so Mayor Robb, members of council, again, this is an information report. During our ice building season this year, our hot water tank rotted out at the arena, which supplies the domestic hot water to our resurfacer. Due to the urgency of this, there was a little bit of a cost increase trying to source that hot water heater. They weren't readily available, but we needed one in order to not delay our ice building process. So this report is just outlining that the cost of the replacement was about 25,000 labor inclusive on that. So it was an expensive hot water heater. In saying that, it is 120 gallon, I believe, or 100-gallon commercial grade hot water heater. So it's an expensive one to begin with, but we did pay a little bit of an upcharge on this one just to get it installed in a timely fashion because our ice depended on it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that one? No. Motion to accept for information. Councillor Irwin, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thanks, Brandon. Committee reports. Laker and Primary.
Sorry, just received notification. There's a meeting first week of October.
Okay, thank you. ABCA.
Yes, we had a tour of the south end of the watershed, which was primarily North Middlesex, and it was very interesting. I was surprised at how much work the Conservation Authority actually does in North Middlesex, but it's very, if anyone has an opportunity to go on one of these tours, it's very informative.
Nice. Okay, any questions? No questions on that? Blue Water Recycling?
I think we just covered it.
I think we did. Economic Development, anything other than the minutes?
The minutes are there. If there's any questions, your worship, we had a meeting in August. The committee made recommendations to come forward to the mayor's budget in future around potential 2026 expenditures.
Any questions from anybody? Seeing none. Local School Advisory.
Thank you, your worship. So yesterday, there was a meeting with the CAO, yourself, the mayor, and myself with the Minister of Education and the local MPP and their staff regarding issues pertaining to the future of schools in North Middlesex. I think it was a very productive meeting. We had assurances from the minister that there was no plans to close any schools at this time or in near future. Also that they're seriously looking at future funding options in terms of how decisions are made around where capital is built. We certainly had a discussion around better coordination between municipal planning and school board planning in terms of future. We also discussed potential for that we've discussed at the local school advisory committee in October, a community meeting around the future of schools. There may be opportunities for representatives from the ministry to attend that meeting and discuss it as well. And finally, in 2 weeks, we have assurances we'll be meeting with the provincially appointed supervisor for Thames Valley and discuss their plans ongoing from his perspective. So all in all, I say it was a very positive meeting. And I don't know if you have anything to add, your worship.
I would just add that Steve Pinsino, our MPP, was involved as well as staff from his office. Arlene was there as well. And I agree, it was a good informative meeting. So if no question on that, recreation,
Nothing at this time.
Brandon?
We are looking at the 23rd for our meeting. We're just trying to confirm the attendance of one member, so.
Okay, thank you. Policy Committee, if we can do it this way tonight, I would say, is there any questions from 1 to 7? And remembering that 3 to 7 are renewals with no changes, just renewal updates. Is there any questions on any of them policies? Councilor Ellison.
I have a question on the vibrancy fund or the community development fund. I think it's item 8, I believe. And it says council may authorize other funding amounts during the consideration of the budget or throughout the year, or reallocate funding within these policy categories depending on the implications on the budget. Now, are these only things that have been approved by the committee? Or is this new things that can come up from time to time?
I believe that they would be ones that were maybe denied by the committee that needed more information, and then they come up later and I think it's the ones that are just free rentals, not necessarily costs.
So what's the purpose of the committee if council is going to override it?
Sometimes things do come through later. I'll give the example of the school or the program that just started this year with the Elsa Craig Lions, where they're doing a skills program this fall. They just started considering it in May. So that would be an opportunity for them as well. But sometimes applications do have questions around that committee, and those questions come back. And if they provide that information, committee basically predetermines if this and this and this come forward for reconsideration.
Okay, I'm just curious why there's actually a deadline for applications if we're not going to adhere to it, but that's okay.
Okay, any other questions?
It has to do with the I think overtime meeting policies. Are we in that one yet or not?
If you like, anywhere from 1 to 7.
Okay. So my question for the overtime meeting policy is, and I have I'm not opposed to it, but is there a way to determine who actually sits here for these staff meetings? Because there have been occasions when some members may have been here but didn't really contribute. So I'm just curious, who determines who's actually going to be here for a council meeting?
So as you can see in the policy, I don't have it in front of me, it's divided up into senior management and management. And from the management staff, it's determined in consultation with their department head as myself. As you can, you're fairly aware that we have certain members of management staff, not senior management, like Joanne that attends regularly. She would be one of those ones that would be included. But then we have other members of staff, for instance, some of the management staff and finance that don't attend. It's only when a staff member needs to be here. If they have a one-off report, that's fine, but they wouldn't be considered a regular attendee. It's staff like our manager of public works or our drainage superintendent that are considered a regular attendee based on need.
That answer is about as clear as mud, but that's, I guess that's about the best I'm going to get because and the reason I'm asking the question is because in the past, I know that we've had, managers, we have managers sit in, and I'm thinking, okay, you're here, but you haven't offered me anything. You haven't made any presentations. I don't know why you're here.
So I would suggest from the management staff, they only attend when they need to be here, which means they have a report on, they had something to contribute, they have something to offer because they have a report on the agenda that it would be beneficial for them to attend.
Well, then I look forward to actually hearing from them. Thank you.
Any other questions on the policy committee? You're moving the policy. Can we do it right at the end of correspondence? No, we can do it now. Go ahead. Moved by Councillor Daigle to accept them, seconded by Councillor Nerda. In favor? Carried. Thank you. Fire committee, anything there? Community Development Fund, nothing there. We spoke on that. Aqua Advisory? Nothing there. Okay, so the Middlesex County OPP Detachment Board, we are looking for someone to replace that person. And I do believe that Councillor Irwin, you have said you would put your name forward for that, correct?
Yes, Your Worship.
Okay, so I think that has to be through motion as well. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor of that? That is carried. Thank you. And that's it. Correspondence. Township of Armour is the governance of family health teams. Municipality Stratford Caradoc, Blue Box procedures. Middlesex London Health Unit, transportation networks. And Park Hill Artesian Collective Arts and Gifts name change. That is the Friends of the Carnegie Library. Is there conversation on that? Well, a little bit. I would like some I know they're just letting us know for information. But I'm curious if they're carrying on the same way, or are they becoming a retail outlet now only?
To the mayor, I think that their plan is to carry on in a similar fashion, but also trying to promote that their stuff is for sale. They've always had the retail portion upstairs. They're just trying to promote it better to traffic coming through that see Friends of Carnegie Library. Well, they want them to know that it's an art stop. Come in, check out the local artists, those type of things.
So they're continuing their programming that they do.
Yes, they're still
Okay.
doing the same thing.
Okay,
They're just trying to promote themselves a little bit better in the arts world.
okay. That's all I was wondering. Just receive and file on all those? Okay, other business? Sam?
Thank you, Your Worship, and to you and the members of council. I just wanted to provide an update as it relates to the OPP. If council will recall, one of the action items that came from the traffic study data that was brought forward was to reach out to the OPP, look to have a meeting to talk with them about traffic in the municipality, share our study results with them, and see where it went from there. So I did send the results to them. They were very responsive in responding to me. The new detachment commander was. The CAO and myself met with him last week, and it was a very, very productive meeting. We generally left the meeting with connecting Felicia as it relates to communications on our end with the communications person on their end, and we're going to be looking at doing some sort of traffic campaign together as it relates to starting to share more stuff on our socials and things of that nature of traffic safety and things like that. So that was one positive that came out of it that will hopefully be starting up soon. And then the other one that I'll share is that they have agreed to work with us to start looking at what we came out of this survey with and other things that came up of problem areas within the municipality. So they're going to start doing some digging on their end as it relates to data they have in the area, and they're going to report back sometime in the future. So as soon as I have some more information from them on that, I will happily share it with council here. But I just thought it would be good information to share that we met with them and things are going very well. And I suspect that it's going to be a productive relationship carried forward. So
That's good to hear. Thank you, Sam. Councilor Nerda, a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Brandon, can we get an update on the community center and daycare?
Yep. So through the mayor to the councillor, the daycare portion, we expect to have completion next week. With that, I think they were targeting early October to mid-October to start because they're gonna have to get all their stuff in and set up. On our side of it, there's a couple doors that we're waiting on still, so we'll probably be mid to late September on finishing. So it's been a door issue.
Thank you, Brandon.
If I could just add to that, in talking with the daycare provider, she, once we turn over the space to her, she'll take about a month to complete all her ministry approvals and do her internal improvements from the leasehold perspective. So she hope to be open October the 1st, but it'll be somewhere between October 1st and 15th, she's hoping.
Okay. Follow up?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So are we accepting bookings now then for 2025 and into early 2026 for our community center?
So through the mayor to the councillor, 2026 for sure. We do have a splash page on our website because a lot of the questions we get are, what will it look like? So the splash page is there so people can see it. We have been accepting bookings into 2026. I'm still a little uncomfortable opening them to 2025 just because I'm told we're waiting on doors and I'm told they'll be here in 2 weeks. But in 2 weeks, it's kind of a supply issue at that point. So if we end up being 4 weeks on doors and we take a rental and have to push it back, I'd rather just wait until doors are here. They're going to be installed. Okay, we have the final picture of when it's going to be, and then we'll start promoting that it's open. The plan would be to do a grand opening of the facility with council to showcase it on both sides. Once the childcare provider is ready for that as well, and then we'll have that, but we will take bookings. So.
Thank you,
Okay.
Brandon.
Any other business? Rob?
Just wanted to clarify, I confirmed with Michelle as she was leaving that it isn't a January 2026 or nothing.
Right.
She basically requires a 6-month lead time to put the program in place. So that means that as soon as we've made a decision, we can then go forward 6 months later with the initiation of the program as it is. So just to streamline some of the budget process, I'd like to reintroduce Sam's motion, taking into consideration that council has already made the motion to do the public awareness and get their feedback, to modify his motion that it be brought forward to budget as if the public awareness comes back in a positive vein, that staff at that point then take the program and the viable start date and bring that forward and budget the deliberations so that we don't end up having to come back after we get the public input back to ask, should we bring it to budget deliberations, and it ends up taking that much extra time. So just to streamline the process, I'd like to reintroduce his motion with the caveat that as long as the public awareness shows a positive influence and that people want it, then we should go ahead and add it to the deliberation.
Okay. Moved by Counselor Daigle, seconder. Counselor Irwin, in favor of that. Just so that it goes in the budget. In favor, opposed? 3 opposed, so that does carry. Thank you. Any other business? That's not making any promises. That's just allowing us to put it in the budget if so needed. Yep. Okay, any other new business? Seeing none? Reading of the bylaws.
My apologies, your worship. It's a different role for me tonight. So the first is that we have bylaws 62, 60, and 65 to 71 be read a first and second time.
Counselor Callison, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried.
And that bylaws 65 through 71 be read a third and final time.
Counselor Keogh, Counselor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. And we need a motion to go into closed, and it is for 239 2B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and 2K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And 3.1, education session, strong mayor. Moved by Counselor Daigle, second by Deputy Mayor Hodgins.